Long time no see. My short little hiatus turned into an over a year long hiatus, and I want to explain what happened, where I went, why I was gone so long, and that'll all be covered in this video. But first, I do need to place a little trigger warning here for domestic violence, abuse, manipulation, stuff like that, because today I will be talking about how some autistic traits can make us more susceptible to certain types of relationships. And as always, I can only ever speak from my own personal experience. So, with that being said, by no means am I suggesting that anyone is more or less likely to get into an abusive relationship or end up in an abusive relationship. However, some autistic traits can make us more susceptible to these types of relationships. Okay, so first I want to talk about why it can be difficult for us to break that silence and reach out for help once we realize that we are in an abusive relationship. Okay, so first of all, as autistic people, a lot of the time, over time, through different interactions, we learn that it's not safe for us to be 100% ourselves because people don't understand us. They actively shun us. They actively shun us. So we learn to do things like mask and script. I have a video on that. I'll link it in the description box if you want to watch that. But we learn to do things like mask and script for our own safety and survival. We create different masks for different people or groups of people because all of our relationships are defined by different expectations, boundaries, and interactions. Different parts of ourselves are safe with different people. Most of the time, our masks aren't these fake versions of ourselves. Most of the time, they have genuine parts of ourselves ingrained into them. We just know that we're not safe to fully unmask and show every aspect of ourselves, if that makes sense. It's actually a lot less debilitating for us to be around people that are safe and understanding, because while we still have to switch between all of these different masks a lot of the time, they're still genuine parts of ourselves. While when we're around unsafe, judgmental people, we're almost forced to mask into a completely different person, and that can be a lot more draining and just damaging to our mental health in general. My masks are much more curated around people that I'm not fully comfortable with, and that can take a lot more out of me. For a lot of us, we don't feel safe or comfortable showing our emotional, personal side to a lot of people. For a lot of us, the only ones that we allow to see that side of ourselves are our partner or our pet. So when it comes to the context of being in an abusive relationship, emotional vulnerability has to be pretty established with someone to bring up such a heavy topic. Otherwise, in order to do that, you would have to break that mask. And that can feel even more unsafe because we don't know how to navigate that interaction. We don't have a mask or a script for the situation. And to me, if you have an issue with somebody, especially within a relationship, you resolve it with that person. You don't involve other people. I feel like that's just a respect thing as well. Like, you don't air out dirty laundry, right? But unfortunately, I think that's what made me such an easy target. It was almost like he was counting on the fact that I would stay silent. Another reason I stayed silent for so long in my own personal experience was because I didn't want to be viewed as weak enough or stupid enough to be manipulated or to find myself in an abusive relationship. And I also found myself pregnant, and I didn't want to accept that the father of my child could be abusive or manipulative or anything like that. Okay, so context, I got pregnant about 3 or 4 months into our relationship, and I was definitely more irritable, and probably not that pleasant to be around. I want to do a whole video on pregnancy as an autistic person because pregnancy is rough on anyone, right? But when you add sensory issues to the mix. Anyway, with that being said, I was still much more accommodating to him than he was ever to me while I was carrying his child. In fact, he thought accommodation was a joke, and he thought it was laughable. I was discriminated against on a daily basis, and get this, he's autistic, ADHD to be specific, but he is the most ableist disabled person I think I have ever met in my entire life. And I mean, he was in a lot of ABA therapy and stuff like that when he was little, so it's been ingrained into him since he was very young. And unfortunately, I don't think he will ever unlearn a lot of that, not because he can't, but I just don't think that he's willing to. My needs were constantly belittled, invalidated, and ignored. And there was a period of time while I was pregnant that he left, and one of his conditions on coming back was that I wasn't allowed to ask for silence anymore because he made a lot of noise a lot of the time that would overwhelm me, and asking for silence to regulate, process anything, you would think it was a fucking war crime. He always made sure that I was too overwhelmed to process anything, and that's a common manipulation tactic among abusers because they know that if you have time to process, that you will likely realize that you are being manipulated. And the fucked up thing about it is I already knew that because I have an abusive parent that would use this manipulation tactic all the fucking time, and yet I still fell for it. And I guess that's just how easy it is to do that to me. During arguments, he would constantly word vomit and speak over me because he knew it would overwhelm me and I wouldn't be able to process or articulate myself. And then he would get angry and hold it against me and say he can't communicate with somebody that takes so long to process. And then he would tell people that I refuse to communicate with him. Now, you may be wondering, how did you allow this to continue to happen to you? I know I've asked myself that quite a few times, and I think a big part of the answer is that society already baffles me. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm already forced to accept things that don't make sense to me on a daily basis. So my threshold for what I'm willing to accept is already so much higher, especially when it comes to people that I love and people that I think love me. Also, this is just kind of a side note, but I thought it was interesting that he always felt the need to reiterate that he wasn't using me. And in hindsight, of course, he was using me. You know, he got kicked out of his sister's house. He moved in with me because he really didn't have anywhere else to go. I housed him, I fed him, I slept with him, I validated him, I paid his fines. You know, I was an abuser's wet dream. Like, I was easily manipulated, easily isolated. I had plenty to offer him. So in the end, my ex was arrested for domestic assault and endangering the welfare of a minor because he shoved me against a wall and threatened to hit me and woke our baby up in the process. There was also a no contact order placed for a little while, but everything has been dropped at this point. It wasn't the first time that he had put his hands on me, but it was the first time that I had called the cops about it. I would also like to point out that there are things like RSD, people-pleasing tendencies, abandonment issues that can play a huge role in making it more difficult for us to leave abusive relationships. But with all of that being said, I just really wanted to make this video for anyone who is currently in an abusive relationship or has previously been in an abusive relationship or enters an abusive relationship in the future. I just want it to be easier for you guys to be able to identify the signs and patterns of abuse and manipulation. And I think this might make it easier for some neurodivergent people to do that. If you would like to learn more about this topic, I am going to link another video in the description box by one of my favorite creators, The Thought Spot. She actually goes in depth on this topic and I learned a lot from her, so I highly recommend you go check that out. But yeah, with all of that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. It has been so amazing being back with you guys and just knowing that I'm gonna upload this. Like, I'm so excited to be back. And just like as a personal update, I have really just been healing and trying to live peacefully in solitude with my daughter, who you can probably hear babbling right now. But my mental health has already drastically improved and I am wanting to start uploading again. Definitely not consistently because, you know, I do have a 7-month-old and I'm not trying to burn myself out or anything. So I'm not going to say anything for sure, but hopefully you guys will be seeing more of me. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Lace the fuck up.
Autistic people are likely to experience manipulation in a dating/relationship environment because of our experience with emotional processing. I have delayed emotional processing, and this means that it can take me quite a while to figure out how I feel about something. I need a lot of time to process. It's taken me months and months to realize how I felt about something at points in my life. I was in a relationship for a year at university, and this person played on that. To what degree they were aware of the fact they were doing so is a different question. But this person was constantly confusing me. What this meant is I was already struggling to know how I felt in a scenario, but because I was getting so many conflicting emotions and experiences, and this person was saying one thing, doing another, saying one thing, but acting another way, I was even more confused. This left me feeling like I couldn't understand people at all, and it's something that I already struggle with, so I didn't know what to do. This meant that I felt anxious. I felt really uncomfortable around this person at times that I supposedly cared a lot about, because I wasn't able to understand them at all, and I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I felt like I wasn't able to grasp how I felt about anything because everything seemed so uncertain and unfixed. And this person gave me the opposite of clarity, clear, important communication that helps to cut through a lot of the noise that goes like that for me. Because for me, or someone like me, knowing what someone feels, if they can express it directly, even if they say don't know, is important, because it gives you a point to work with. This open air that is left for you to kind of just flutter in as someone who's struggled with that already just adds to that. That's not healthy. It's not safe. And it's something that we are used to experiencing, because people who aren't able to express their emotions clearly are specifically quite dangerous for us long term and how it can impact us. And even if they don't realize it, it can be manipulative.